Hello, welcome back. All right, today, contrast. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about contrast in design, how it's used. But I think everybody's immediately going to think like contrast, like, oh, black and white. But we're going to talk about all the different types of contrast that you can use in a piece. And why do we use contrast? We use contrast because we want something to stick out. We want it to show up. We want it to look different than everything else. So we use contrast to help emphasize that. Going back to our other lectures, emphasis, balance, but we want to use contrast to help with that. Anything we can use in these principles to help determine our message and help get it across to the viewer, we use it. Why not? Like there's so many of them out there, and contrast is just another one of those principles that we use in order to help highlight and get people to see what we're talking about, understand our messaging, and take away what we want them to take away or what the client wants them to take away from the message. So let's zoom on in and let's talk about contrast. All right. Contrast, as I said earlier, can be in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. And so it's just, I'll mistakenly just talk about them all at once if I don't do it one by one. So color contrast. Colors contrast with each other, not just with black and white in a light version and a dark version, but you can use complementary colors. You can use, lighter tints with tones and shades. So many different ways to keep color and not just have it be plain black and white. I love working in color whenever I can. And it's hard. It's a little bit difficult, but sometimes you get this dynamic effects as it creates dynamic effects. Is the vibrancy of both colors. Sometimes you have to watch that. We always put red and green for Christmas. Very hard to read together, but they should work better than it does. But you need to play around with that. Another one I may mention to students with the color contrast is think of a Halloween style where they do red background with black text on it. You think that would be great. It really doesn't. There's not enough color contrast. So you have to lighten the red. Like, I want a really dark, gory red, and I'm put black text on it. It's like, well, that's just kind of like black on dark gray. So you always have to kind of think, how does this look if I was to gray it out? But plenty of room to play with color and experiment and do different things. I kind of wish I had a whole class just on color. That'd be awesome. And that, what I just said, and then brings us into value contrast. That's the big one. So you're looking at black versus white right now. It doesn't get any more value contrast than that. 100% of one, 0 of the other, absolutely contrasting. You can, get it closer and closer. You can play around with that. I have an example over there that's like all grays, but it's still, they added enough contrast in this mix of grays and softness that everything still reads when you need to read it. So it doesn't have to always be super stark in your face, value contrast, but it helps. And if your message is getting lost, then you think like, what can I do to up the contrast? I need this to pop. A lot of times there's no better word. I wish there was. I should look up a thesaurus instead of using the word pop. Like it needs to pop. It needs to jump off the page. People need to see it first. So a lot of that ends up being with the value contrast. Size, big and small. We worked on it with that. Some students have done it. I've seen it coming through for emphasis and focal point, varied sizes. What do you see first? You're going to see the biggest thing first. Bigger is better, right? Make the logo bigger. Why is it bigger? Because we want people to see it first. If it's the biggest thing on the page, it's the biggest thing they're going to notice, which then in reverse, you may not want that. They may say like, oh, that's too big. Make that smaller. We want this other part bigger. And it's just playing with size contrast, making sure that what we need to see first is possibly the biggest, but not always. So again, I guess what we want to talk about is you can't necessarily use every one of these versions of contrast all at once. You use them how they need to be used. If you think back to that like Tintin example where he's huge walking on a world, like, well, that doesn't make sense, you know, like size and contrast, but they played with size contrast there to help tell a story. And I think that's a very good one to talk about if you remember the Tintin one. Shape. Got a bunch of organic shapes, and I throw in some geometric shapes in there. Those are going to stand out, right? It's going to stand out. It's going to be the pattern anomaly. I think we talked about pattern too. No, not really. So that's the anomaly. So if I have a shape and I'm using all these like organic shapes, and then I put a block of text in it, it's going to stand out. That block, you know, the box is going to be like so different than the organic shapes that people are going to be like, oh, I should probably recognize that. I should look at that. It is different than everything else on the page. I'm attracted to it. So that's how we use that shape contrast. What's going on in there that we can change something to make it notable that people will look at it. And again, that's a lot of what this is about, is like, how do I make something notable so people look at it and they see it and it jumps out and it shows up. Oh, I'm gonna write a note. Give me a second. All my stuff is taken up for the next one. Joe Alvarez. I just thought of something for your for the contrast project. All right, next up, texture. We saw it with that one piece that was cut out piece of paper. It was a gray piece of paper, very smooth, right? Placed on top of asphalt, which was very rough. The colors were both grays. The asphalt was a little darker gray than the paper, but they're very similar. But what made it stand out was the texture contrast. We had this very smooth and then very rough. So texture can be used to help enhance the message as well, to make it more interesting. Typography. This is the big one. This is for graphic design, 90% of what it is typography, I would say. How are you setting those words apart on the page to make them read? Make sure that people understand, I want you to read this first, this second, this third. And by doing that, we use different fonts, different sizes, different weights, and styles of typography. We already talked about sans serif and serif. Then there's script. And then within certain fonts, we talk about sizes, but weights. Some fonts have like 40 different weights. It's ultra thin condensed, thin condensed, ultra thin condensed, italic. So there's all these different styles of typography built into these families that we can use to make sure that people are reading our information the correct way. And by using those differences, we're contrasting enough that people read it. You know, I always just state this simple one. I don't even think this is bold. Maybe this is bold or medium, and this is regular. If I went like black, so there's a version called black, and it's really thick. I mean, that would stick out even more, but I didn't need it to. I just wanted it to stick out enough to know that this is the header. We signal to people on how to read the heaviest text first, and then it jumps in. So this is furthest to the left and bold. I'm going to read it first, and then I'm read the next thing, and I go back out and read the next thing. So typography is going to get real big. Spatial contrast. How do we arrange those items on the page? Near, far, tight, expanded. to get people to see what we need them to see. If we have an arrangement of, when we get to movement, there's a couple great movement ones that work great with spatial contrast. But if we have a very busy area on our page, and then we put something very important, we'll put that in the non-busy area. If we have like, a lot of stuff happening on one side, we'll change that up. Can't believe it's been this long. I went almost the whole lecture without, like say there's all this stuff going on here and it's very entertaining, whatever it is. But then I put my message here. It's going to stand out. It's busy here, but then I'm like, oh, when I go down, it's not busy here and I can read this message. So that's how we do it with spatial. If everything's always busy and then you just have stuff in it, nothing, you're like, okay, well, where are my visual cues to what I'm supposed to do here? So again, it's amazing and how we can guide people. Temperature contrast then goes just like with the color. Use warm colors. Everything's warm. And then I use like blue text in it because the blue will pop off that warm. And so that's what we're talking about. Like, how do we use that? And that's a little bit different than just the full on color contrast, but we use temperature contrast to help with that. And it can be far more subtle and more engaging that way. So it's pretty cool, like all the stuff we can do. Let's check out some examples. We'll start basically black and white. So the great thing about this piece, it is two colors. It is black and gray. We talk about it, but the white is considered the paper color. If you use InDesign, sometimes if you go through that color swatch and you click on it, what you'll see is white will just be called paper. They're assuming you're printing on white paper, but that changes. We're not always printing on white paper. What if I printed on yellow? Well, it would still look just as cool, but everything white would be yellow, and then it would still be black and dark gray. So it's a two color. And so we have high contrast right there. And we're creating interest, but the interest doesn't have to be super outrageous. This gray is probably like a 75% gray, and the black is 100% black. It's just enough to build some dimension and contrast, but not so much that it looks maybe funny. I think if they would have went like a lighter gray, it would have stuck out too much. So it's very subtle, but what they wanted it to do is pop on the white. Whatever they did. If they would have done like a 50% gray instead of dark black here, it wouldn't have as much pop. The jazz artist wouldn't jump off the page, if that makes sense. So they did it very subtly. I'm not going to use, I'm not going to go from white, all the way, if it was to be like 100 to 0, 0 being white and this being black, they were like, oh, but we want our other one to be right here. And we're going to leave all this room for contrast if we are doing it at a value scale. But we can still do that. Like in this piece, we have value scale all over. We have it from the darkest dark all the way to white. We're using every gray tone in there, everywhere. But how are we separating it out? Where's our contrast? Well, one, it is with lights and darks, but the other one is focus range. Super fuzzy, less fuzzy, and what I want you to read is not fuzzy at all. Perfectly sharp. I'm able to play around. That way I'm able to include highlights of white in other areas, but it doesn't necessarily pull us away because this is the sharpest, the most contrasting part of the piece. We use this black, that's down here, same color, but because we're not fuzzing it out, makes it legible, readable. And that's all they did there. The contrast is with texture. So I'd almost say like this has no texture. Everything else is very texturized, fuzzy, whatever you want to call it, however you want to say that. We go from this. Look at so this is why this one is in here, this other piece. You're like, wait, what? This is 3 colors, dark gray, black, right? There's a lot of depth to this. This is black on white, not a lot of depth to it. That gray here adds a lot. Here we can see without it, we have an extremely contrasty piece. Black, white, easy to read. It's reversed out. There's like debates on whether it's easier to read black text on white or white text on black. It may be sometimes easier to read it in reverse. Here's why we don't do it all the time. You use more ink, right? The more black you have on the page, you have to use more ink. Ink costs money. If you're running like 1 million of these, you know what I mean? Like, then you're paying a lot in ink. But if you, like, think of a book, think of your novels, think about, anything like that. Initially, it came from, we need to scribe something. So initially, we used to carve into stone. You know what I mean? Like you pound it out, and it was our only way, or we drew on clay tablets when we pushed a stylus into a clay tablet to make impressions that then caught light and shadow that made it visible. But then we started, drawing in ink. Ink was before pencils. And the way it was is we found a white-ish substrate and we drew with dark on it. And that became the standard. So then when we started printing books, of course, we're going to make the letters in a black and keep the paper white. It's a far easier process. The paper's already white. Why change it? Let's do black text. This is the reverse of that. But again, the more ink you put down, the more expensive it is and harder it is to print. So that's why you don't see novels typed out in reverse. Those pages would be crazy. Like, it'd just be very hard to read after a while too. So that is why. So that's why this sticks out. The contrast on this piece is all about the reverse. Somebody's like, oh, we could do it one way. Let's do it the other way. In fact, let's have some fun. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, come on. Why can't I get to it? One momento. File, new. That's going to know I just did, File. Oh, I know. No, place. On your computer. Today. Place. All right. Now I should just be able to zoom out. Let's make this the size of the board. And then where's invert? Invert. There you go. It's not the same piece. It is not as dynamic, not as fun. Like, it totally looks different. It still works. It's a design, but I totally think that this stands out way more. Because in actuality, probably the heart would be dark, if you're doing a drawing, but they contrast, like that would be normal, but that doesn't work. That wouldn't work as good. So it's always good to just double check like what you're doing. You can easily do stuff like take screenshots and change it and look at it in a different way. Contrast of colors. Warm on the inside, fading out to blues. Warms, cools, splashes of color everywhere. The main figure, stark contrast on this bright background, splashes, and then we have contrast of texture, big, open, wide, splashy texture coming in to fine detail, whiskers and hairs, contrasting inside, outside, in the way it works so well. This reversal here, because this is like blues. The Panther is mostly blues. There's some warmth in it right here, a couple little spots of warmth, but mostly cool on the inside of the Panther, bright and warm on the outside. And then we do that reversal here where we bring this in. So we start on the top. It's that same, see, red to yellow to red, red to yellow to red. I actually think right here, it's too messy. They should have on the NYE should have been a little bit cleaner, like debut show, but I didn't design it and that's okay. I didn't need to, but that's where we're talking about color, contrast, warm, cools, everything's going on this. And last but not least, iPod. This came out. When this came out, it blew everybody's mind for some reason. Not the iPod. There had already been MP3 players. That's what an iPod was, an MP3 player. But what they did, what Apple did, is the white cord that made them different. Every other set of, and this will get to graphic design, it's not just a history and industrial design. Every other set, every other MP3 player made out there, and I had a couple, I was a Zune person, I like the Zune. It was black, and the headphones were black, everything was black. And the iPod came out, and it was white, and the cord and the earbuds were white. Nobody else did that. So what do we do to advertise that? High contrast. They created series among series for years. Well, the iPod, this was their ad campaign. They changed it, they added texture, they added motion like they did other things. But it was about the color background contrasting with the person, hopefully dancing, and highlighting their main product in white because it was so different. And you knew back in that time that you didn't even need to see the iPod, but if you saw white running up near their head, you're like, oh, you have an iPod. How lucky, oh, you spent the $1 million to get an iPod. That's what it was. And these ads built on that contrast, built on that idea of ours sticks out. If this was I can do it right now. If this was a black MP3 player of unknown origin, and then it had black earbuds, come on. You can see this no longer works. What's going on? Now it just looks dumb. You can't really tell what's going on in that besides my bad scribbling over the top of the image. But it doesn't make any sense. Take that all away, and what do you have? Oh, I see the product. Contrasting on the person, contrasting on a beautifully bright background. So there you go. Any questions about contrast? All right, let's talk about the assignments. All right, the research. Back to Illustrator. I'm not going to walk through this. You know what to do. You create an Illustrator. You've done it a couple times already. You're getting more and more proficient. Everybody's doing great. The more we practice it, the better we get. It may seem simple, may just seem trite, like I don't understand why I'm doing this, but every day in your graphic design career, you'll be opening and creating documents. And the sooner you just get to have it be like back of the mind what you're doing, the better. Setting it up, setting up your layers, doing everything correctly over and over and over. It just makes it second nature. You know, it makes it what it is. So do your book cover, your movie poster, an album cover, and have some fun. Do great design work. The project. This one, I left a little open. I want you to try some stuff out. Be creative. You are going to create 6 compositions using color, shape, and typography to define contrast in the design. I gave no examples for this one. What can you do? What cool designs can you make that employ color, shape, and typography to define the design? I have it open so you can see what I mean. Oh, I had it. Oh, I know. It's downloaded. All right. So color, shape, type. Be creative. Try different things. Experiment. That's what these are about too. It's about experimentation, like trying, what if I do this and this? What if I try this and that and the other thing? Have some fun. Oh, this one's not fully marked, but your artwork here, use that layer, play around, and go nuts. Yeah. Some of these toward the end, I make harder, and I don't always include examples because you're getting smarter. You're getting better at this. You're trying different things out. So play around, have some fun. 2 for each. And the type, that's, think of something funny, you know, have a contrasting type, look something up, use the internet for help. If you need help with, like, I can't think of anything to type, use the internet, you know, the hottest phrases of 2020. See what that happens. So, all right. Any questions so far? Any questions about the research or about the project? All right.
I have a question about my my music festival logo. So it's
okay.
Mine is just plain black. Like their logo is just plain black. But
who's the
Electric
festival?
It's called Electric Daisy Carnival. It's Las Vegas biggest music festival. But they also have a design for their logo, but I wasn't sure if I could use it because I didn't want to get points off of plagiarism. So I just found like
no. Okay. No. All right, I'm looking.
Okay.
Which one? Like, these are the, right?
Yeah, that's their logo type font. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have like that plain black one.
You can use the color one.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you. And you bring something up that I guess I didn't really talk about, and all you students should know. Your students. You are not in the area of plagiarism when we do designs like this, and we're asking you to use somebody else's logo to create a poster for that event, because we're not actually doing it. We are doing it in a form of practice, but we are not in any way taking the design that we have, selling it and saying, I created this for Electric Daisy Carnival and I want you to pay me. The second you do that is the second you cross over the lines. We are using it for educational purposes in which there's no monetary value associated with this. So you can do a ton of different things, and EDC can't call you up and be like, hey, I saw you did a poster for our event and we didn't give you rights to do it. And all you do is write back is like, I'm a student and it was a student assignment. And then they back off and go like, oh, okay, we didn't know that. You wouldn't be showing, this goes in your portfolio. It's going to maybe, if it makes the cut by your fourth semester, it might be on your Behance portfolio, but nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to say like you plagiarized. But in fact, the opposite of that is maybe true, is I want you to use the correct logo and not ruin their logo. So you could go so far as to be like, well, this is their logo. Sorry, wrong stylus. See, but they have a new one. That's the fat guy. That's the new one. But if I was like, oh, I'm just going to make my own version of their logo, like then they could come and be like, what is that? Like, that's not our logo. Why did you ruin our logo? And you're like, well, I just made it up myself. I couldn't find it. I don't know what that'd be. So, but what we do want to do is we want to represent properly. The reason being is you would actually have people looking to hire you look at this and say like, oh, I know that logo. Why is that logo wrong? You don't want that question. Like, they'd be like, oh, I've been to EDC. That's not the right logo. You're like, well, no, I made one up. And they'll be like, is that part of the assignment? Like, no, it wasn't, but I couldn't find, like it gets in a different area. You can use any one of these you are comfortable using because they are the corporate logo for them. But as we're seeing, it looks like they updated their logo to this fatty compared to this. They got rid of the interwoven one. I'd almost call it Celtic version and went to the bigger, fatter version. I don't know what this is. Fandom. Oh, maybe they're using that as well. I'd have to go to their website. Did that answer your question and make you more confused?
Yeah, you explained it better.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're all good with that. You're all good. All right. Rough drafts. You did a bunch of drawings. I want you to take 2 of those drawings and, as we say in the industry, tighten them up. The initial one is get some ideas down. Like we were like, oh, draw the square and I want the headliner here. I want this here, this here, this here, this here. And it was just very rough. I want you to tighten it up. This is one where you show the client one version and then you show them another. Like, before I get too far, I'm going to tighten things up. And this is where you kind of get approval as so far as you don't have to redo anything. And the reason we try to do it in a very loose, sketchy way is because we want to spend our time on the final design, which will start next week. Don't worry. And less time, I guess it's less time on this area, more time in the back on the final area. You can spend a lot of time with the sketches and your creativity comes out here. But once your creativity is approved, then you move forward and you make the visuals. So like that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do it fast. Here's a bunch of ideas. I don't want to spend too much because you are still making decisions. And I want all your decisions to be done, client, before I get into the computer and really start like spending a ton of hours putting things in, finding it, refining it, doing all this other stuff. So I want you to choose 2 of your favorite thumbnail sketches and develop a rough draft. I need everybody to pay attention to this part. All 5 of these items need to be in there. All of them. I'm the client, and as part of my creative brief to you is it must include the music festival logo, a minimum of 3 pictures from the festival, the paragraph about the festival, the 3 headliners, and the dates. Every time somebody leaves like 2 or 3 of these out, it's like, no, these are the mandatories. It is not accepted unless all 5 of these are in there. Your client would say to you, like, why did you leave out the headliners? You're like, oh, well, I guess I didn't need it. And they'll be like, no, it's written up. Like, we wrote it up for you. It needs to be in there. So all 5. It's not that many things. And then we need to think about hierarchy when we're doing it. So don't think about like, here's one. All 5 of those aren't equally as important. I would say the music festival logo is pretty darn important. The headliners is probably pretty important because that attracts people's attention. You know, like, oh, so-and-so is going to be there. Woo. And then the dates. I need to know when it is. This paragraph can be fairly small. That's for people who want to know more later. And then the 3 pictures, the 3 pictures are all about showing people the ambience of the festival. So those don't need to be in any way huge either. So if I was thinking hierarchy, I'd be like music festival logo, headliners and dates, 3 pictures paragraph. So again, thinking of like what is most important, the least important. You may think like, oh, but the about paragraph tells about the music festival. Again, that's like somebody who's like was there long enough to finally read the paragraph. And that's totally fine. That's why we do that. We set it up. What's the initial takeaway? There is a music festival happening on this date with these 3 headliners. Holy cow. I mentally note that. And as I get closer, I'm like, oh, it looks like a lot of fun. Look at those pictures. And then there's a little about paragraph. I also want you to think about the fonts, your color palette, and any extra photos and illustrations you may need to include. And I like to say, like, practice a little bit. What does that mean? All right, so look at fonts. There's a billion different fonts out there. Do not just take, like, when thinking about your final poster, because you're not doing this quite in the computer, but I want you to look like, what's the crazy font you're going to use? You know, like, you can go to this place called Da Fonts. There's like a ton of them out there. Adobe has them. But you can sort. So what is that? What was yours? Electric Daisy Carnival? I'm just going to associate that with Groovy. So I clicked on Groovy. And you look through these and you're like, oh, yeah, I want to do the headliners in Flowers Kingdom. And then so you're like, that's the font I want to use for like one part. I wouldn't type the paragraph in that. But like start looking through. And then you have another one, you know, like you're doing 2 versions and one's a little bit different. And so you want like a grungy one. I don't know why. This doesn't fit that Electric Festival at all. So I take that back. I don't know. There are other sites out there besides Da Font. So you can dig around. What's the color palette? Start thinking about that. I'm going to use warms, cools. I want, you know, blue and orange, teal and orange. I want the pop, like be crazy. All right, great. Extra photos and illustrations. If you happen to put something in and you draw it out, like a Ferris wheel or something, like, know that you're going to have to find that or use that later on. Use the internet again, like to get what you need. If you are not confident about your abilities, this is still about like, how do we get to that point of confidence? We have to work on it. There's no like way for me to just magically make it happen, but like find those things. The internet is an amazing place to find what you want. I just worked with somebody on a Ferris wheel illustration for fixing up one of these, but like they're all over the place. You know, like, oh, and then I want one like this, and then you just do a screenshot and you're like, okay, I can maybe work with that, whatever it may be. Okay. So it's out there. Find what you need. again, we don't have to worry about if you, okay, you don't have to worry about plagiarism, but if you just basically took this illustration and then put your stuff on top of it, that would be plagiarism. Like you have to do the creative work. But that's also why we have you step through this process of here's my initial, here's my rough drafts. So let's check out the rough drafts of this person. All right. So we looked at this and I explained the thumbnail sketches. Now, rough drafts. They're tighter and more thought out, and specific things are hit upon. They have their notes as well. So they knew I'm going to do this hand. Got the lightning bolts. Here's the logo. They didn't want to draw out the logo. It's easy enough to drop in a logo. They knew that this was going to be a picture of Jelly Roll, Shinedown, 30 Seconds to Mars, like the date. And it's very, like, this can directly be then taken. And this is what you do. You put it in the Illustrator, and then you start putting everything exactly on top of where you had it drawn in. That's why we do this. It's very easy. That's the other reason, like, we're trying to step away from getting you like immediately in the computer worrying about which tool does what. But right now we're working on just think about where you want every piece in this design. I hear it, everybody, but I'm not a good drawer. You don't really have to be a good drawer. Like it's just about like getting it, like even if you're like hand, like I got a hand, you know, like it's going to be here. That's pretty crap. But, you know, trace or something. Oh, I'm doing it the wrong way. You can do it. You only have 2 of these to do. So spend some time. The more you develop your little sketching skills, the better you will be as a graphic designer as well. I promise you that. And it's just sketching skills, like drawing squares and boxes and being able to estimate like, oh, a lightning bolt. And then here's the, so this is the one. I'll show you something else. And this is the other one. I got the fire in there. I could tell it's fire. I know where the date goes. Here's a picture of Ice Cube, guitar player, stage pick, picture of Jelly Roll, Shinedown, 30 Seconds to Mars, and then the logo. This one did not work out well because the logo is too small. I can't remember where we moved things around to. And then the summary. And then the write-up. If you are ever at a point where you're like, I guess I don't know how to draw that. Go on the internet and look at a picture of it. I think we run into this problem as early on designers and artists of thinking we see people who are done and professionals and like, they just drew it. They just drew it automatically. But you know what really happens is a lot of people just do this. And they're like, I'm going to look up pictures of Ferris wheels and there we go. And I'm going to keep that up on my screen and I'm going to draw what I see. Use references. You got a guitar? Oh, that one always bugs me. You're going to put a guitar in? Know what a guitar looks like. There are so many people who get a guitar wrong. And then I question it. Like, is that a guitar? Did you actually look at a guitar? Do you know what they look like? Like, you know, is it a bass or is it a guitar? How many strings are you using? Horns. If you're going to do a jazz festival, just find some horn illustrate. Not like that kind of horn. That's hilarious. But you know, horn. There you go. Like every horn. Know sort of what they look like and just kind of trace it in your mind. You know, get it on the page. I'm not looking for, you know, super high accuracy. I'm just looking for enough that when I see it as the client, I can be like, yes, perfect. You know, like we want that one. This looks great. Let's see what it looks like. And then you can start to put it together. Because the last thing you would want to do is like spend all this work and then show them that and be like, nah, we don't like it. And you're like, I spent like 4 hours setting this up and you don't like it. when you spent maybe 1 hour doing a nice sketch instead. So you save yourself time and money. Money being that you didn't waste it. So any questions, comments, or concerns about this? And again, feel free, share with me, use that discussion board, use that discussion area and share with me on, if you're like, how does this look? But I'll get right back to you. I'm trying to get back to people as fast as I can. I think I'm doing good. So cool. There's no other questions. Have some fun, enjoy it. And we will talk on Thursday. Cool. All right. Take care. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.